Well, after a week-long break, the Outlander Season 7 finale is finally here, and what an emotional episode it was. The core themes of the episode felt centered around death, connecting with family, and rebirth. This episode made us bid farewell to a few characters, while also showing that the very death we witnessed needed to happen in order for the story to progress, allowing Claire to connect with a family member she didn't even know she had. So, with that, let's dive into the episode, titled A 100,000 Angels, and break down all there was to take away from it. Here's the Outlander Season 7 Episode 16 ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Who is Frances? We were first introduced to Frances through Jane, a woman whom William encountered at a brothel, where they became intimate. At the time, it seemed like a fleeting encounter, with little significance beyond their brief interaction. However, as the story progressed, we came to realize just how important both Jane and Frances would be, especially as the season reached its dramatic conclusion. This episode placed a strong emphasis on the theme of family reunions, with multiple storylines revolving around the idea of reconnecting with loved ones. One of the most poignant moments came when Brianna, traveling back to the early 1700s, was finally reunited with her husband, Roger. This reunion was a long-awaited and emotional one, highlighting the strength of their bond despite the trials of time travel. Similarly, William's journey brought him to seek out Lord John and Jamie, hoping for their support. In one of the most touching moments, Brianna was taken aback by the resemblance between Jamie and a woman from his past, Ellen, his late wife. But perhaps the most striking reunion of all was with Frances, who was singing I Do Like to Be Beside the Seaside, a song that was popularized in the early 1900s. This was the same song Claire once sang to her stillborn daughter, Faith. Claire's confusion over Frances's knowledge of the song was understandable, given that it had only gained popularity long after the time period in which Frances lived. The only plausible explanation was that Frances either had access to a time traveler's knowledge or, in a more emotional twist, that she could possibly be connected to Faith in some way. Given the possibility that Faith might have been a Fraser, this connection hinted at something far deeper and more meaningful than anyone could have anticipated, suggesting that Frances might, in fact, be a piece of the larger puzzle that could tie the past, present, and future together in unexpected ways. Another connection between Frances and Claire was the photo of Frances's mother inside a locket, with Faith engraved on the back, insinuating that her mother's name was Faith, which coincidentally was the same name as Claire and Jamie's daughter who died. So, all fingers are currently pointing towards Frances's mother being Jamie and Claire's daughter, and that she didn't actually die like Claire believed. This could be when Master Raymond appeared in a vision during the night and said that he would see Claire again, because Claire may well go back to Paris to see if Faith didn't, in fact, survive and go on to have a life. They might not be heading to the ridge like originally planned. This is a massive twist if it is the case, and one that's long been on the horizon since Season 2, almost 6 seasons in the making. There have been rumors in the past from novel readers who questioned if this could well be the case, especially after the two characters were first introduced. Now, it looks like the showrunners are going to lean into it and go down that path. The way that Jamie and Claire just took Frances under their wing before even knowing this shows the kind-hearted nature they both have. I thought Frances living with them was almost going to be like a metaphorical and symbolic representation of Claire having a mother-daughter relationship, seeing as though she was denied that chance with Faith. But it seems like that relationship is going to be closer to home than she realized. Jamie and William. Jamie spent the majority of this episode by his wife's side, tending to her as Claire slowly healed from the wounds she sustained in the crossfire. While much of the focus was on Claire's recovery, the true emotional depth of the episode came from Jamie's quiet yet pivotal moment of stepping away from his wife's side to repair the fractured bond with his son, William. This part of the story was undoubtedly the most compelling, as it shed light on the complexities of their strained relationship. William, full of determination and a strong sense of justice, was resolute in his decision to rescue Jane, who had been arrested for the murder of Captain Harkness. Her fate was sealed, as she was set to be executed for her crimes, and William couldn't bear the thought of losing her. This desire to save Jane dominated much of the plotline, drawing Jamie into the mission as he tried to balance his loyalties to his son with the weight of the situation. The night they ventured to free Jane, However, tragedy struck before they could reach her. She took her own life. In a deeply poignant moment, she gazed up at the sky, singing "I Do Like to Be Beside the Seaside," a song that echoed through the air, and then waved up to the stars. It was here that the episode's title, "A 100,000 Angels," was fully realized. Jane's mother, who we can assume to be Faith, had once told her that if she looked up at the lights in the sky, she would see 100,000 angels, and if she waved to them, they would take her to heaven. This symbolic gesture of waving to the heavens felt almost like a final farewell, a reunion between mother and daughter that transcended time and space. The flashback earlier in the episode, showing Jane's younger years with her mother and Francis, reinforced this idea, especially when Francis referenced dragonflies, a motif that tied the narrative back to memories of childhood innocence and connection. It became increasingly clear that, in that moment, Jane was reuniting with her mother, allowing her spirit to move on. The theme of death, which permeated the episode, found its most resonant expression in Jamie's reflection on the nature of loss. He remarked that the idea of being with the people you've lost makes the experience of death seem less painful, and in Jane's case, this sentiment rang true. Her choice to end her life might have been shaped by her desire to reunite with those she loved, and in that act of surrender, she found peace. The episode masterfully blended grief, love, and the inevitability of death, leaving us to ponder the quiet moments where connections are made and severed. When William got to Jane, it was sadly too late, and we saw that he truly cared for her and wanted to save her. I really wanted William to have a happy ending with her because she did give him a sense of grounding, and we saw a different side to the character with Jane, but it just wasn't meant to be. However, it seems like William and Jane meeting had a larger purpose, one which is going to connect two sides of the family that Claire didn't even know existed. William and Jamie had a moment in this episode, too, where William acknowledged that Jamie was his biological father, but he did say that he'd never call him that. Even acknowledging him showed growth and development between the pair, especially with Jamie saying that he didn't regret William's mother dying because it meant that William was born. William also went to Lord John for advice, showing that both people he viewed as father figures no longer had conflict associated with them. Brianna and Roger. Brianna and Roger had such a small involvement in this finale, and I thought that it was a bit of a shame. The whole Rob Cameron storyline deserved a bit more attention, in my opinion, especially considering it was at the heart of the mid-season finale, with Brianna being in the early 1700s with Roger and her realizing that she didn't quite want to go back to 1980, but instead wanted to be with her mother and father. It looks like the family might be going forward a few decades to be reunited with Jamie and Claire. Personally, I think that makes sense, especially considering we're going into the final season of the show. I feel we have to see them all on screen together as one, maybe with the intention of Brianna and Roger going back to the 1980s towards the end. William mentioned Brianna when he was with Jamie and the fact that she was his sister, so we could see a whole family reunion type thing taking place towards the end of the season now that everybody knows who they're related to. Plus, Brianna could also be an aunt now with Francis in the picture. Ian and Rachel. Ian and Rachel didn't have a particularly large involvement in this episode, but their storyline still added significant depth to the emotional fabric of the show. Their narrative arc was largely centered on their journey to North Carolina, a move that symbolized the beginning of a new chapter in their lives together now that they were married. After all the hardships and trials they had faced, they were finally embarking on a path to build their own life, free from the chaos that had once consumed them. As the episode unfolded, we learned that Rachel was carrying a child, adding an even more heartwarming layer to their story. The news of her pregnancy brought hope and a sense of renewal to Ian and Rachel's lives. It was clear that they were going to have a new role to embrace, that of parents, and they were eagerly preparing for the arrival of their child. Together, they were starting their own little family, with all the responsibilities and joys that came with it. However, even in the midst of this new beginning, the episode continued to weave in the central theme of death, which hung heavily over the narrative. In a heartbreaking moment, Ian awoke to discover that Rollo, his loyal dog and companion who had been with him through thick and thin, had passed away during the night. Losing an animal is devastating, especially when they've been a constant presence and source of comfort throughout life's struggles. Rollo had been more than just a pet, he was a part of Ian's family, a silent witness to his most intimate moments and a steadfast companion through both good times and bad. The moment was so poignant and raw, as viewers felt Ian's grief at losing his friend. Ian reflected on the bond they shared, noting that he had always relied on Rollo for support, particularly during the darkest moments of his journey. But now, as Ian was about to start this new chapter of his life with Rachel and their growing family, he couldn't help but feel as though Rollo had waited for this moment. It was almost as if Rollo had known that Ian had finally found happiness and stability, and that he no longer needed his constant companionship to carry him through. This realization made Rollo's passing even more emotional, as Ian came to terms with the fact that, sometimes, in life, even the most loyal friends have to let go when their job is done. The scene was undeniably sad and emotionally charged, leaving viewers with a sense of melancholy mixed with hope. As Ian and Rachel left for North Carolina to start their new life, it felt like a bittersweet transition, one filled with promise but also a deep sense of loss. It will be intriguing to see how Ian and Rachel's story unfolds in the upcoming final season of the show. Their journey, marked by personal growth and the inevitable challenges of family life, promises to offer even more emotional depth and character development as the story progresses. How will Ian cope with the grief of losing Rollo while embracing fatherhood and a new life with Rachel? And how will their family dynamics evolve as they settle into their new home? With the final season approaching, it's clear that Ian and Rachel's story is far from over, and there's so much more to look forward to as we witness their journey unfold. My review of Outlander Season 7, Episode 16. I thought this was a strong season finale. I liked the slow pace of it. It wasn't a season finale that relied on action, battles, or drama. It took its time and allowed the story to unfold and develop in front of us while giving a heavy focus on conversation. The twist with Francis is a bold move for the show to make, and it's one that I'm interested to see how they're going to handle. While on the topic of Francis, I just want to say that the performance she gave when she was in the graveyard was incredible. The emotion she delivered was palpable, and you could really feel the loneliness, emptiness, and grief she was carrying. It was top-tier acting, for sure. I'd say that I liked the way that it seemed like family was at the center of this episode, with the reunions that were occurring and the peace offerings being passed around. Indeed, even with Ruler John and Claire, no stone was left unturned, and all connections were fixed somehow, so there was a genuine component of conclusion. However, I did in any case think Jamie was being a piece regrettable around John. Like, simply continue on now, Jamie. John almost kicked the bucket, so it's not exactly seeming to be their relationship will at any point be the equivalent in the future, and I feel that is somewhat of a disgrace. I was a piece befuddled that we never truly had any conclusion when it came to the Philadelphia lobby, nor did we see any repercussions for Jamie basically being a miscreant. However, perhaps that will come in the following time of the show. I actually can't believe we're about to embark on the final season of the show. It's been one hell of a ride, even just this season, but when the show returns, we will be bidding farewell to it forever, something I don't know if I'm ready to do just yet. So, I'm glad we've got one more season on the way. Outro. So there you have it, Outlander Season 7, Episode 16 ending explained. If you want to see every episode of Outlander Season 7 being broken down, click on the card in the top corner. There's a playlist there, or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find more of your favorite TV series and movies being broken down. What did you think of this episode? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.